phone off. That is essentially what I mean. Doo-doo-doo. Shabbat shalom umevorach. Shabbat shalom umevorach. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shir hamalot. Teshuv Adonai. And Shimat Zion hayinu ke'olim. Shir hamalot. Teshuv Adonai. And Shirat Zion hayinu ke'olim. Shabbat shalom umevorach. Shabbat shalom umevorach. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shir hamalot. Teshuv Adonai. And Shirat Zion hayinu ke'olim. Shir hamalot. Teshuv Adonai. And Shirat Zion hayinu ke'olim.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
It's great to be together to celebrate Shabbat. We're going to delve into the idea of walking a little bit this Shabbat, whether that's walking footsteps, walking on some kind of journey, physical or spiritual, and what walking can teach us about life and living in the ways of the eternal God. So a little more on that theme later, but right now I'm going to ask Lori to walk over here to light the Shabbat candles. And if you'd like to follow along with the blessing, it is on page 3. Thank you so much, Lori.
asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lechad lichner shel Shabbat.
Amen. Oh, thank you. I want to share now a poem by Rilke called A Walk. Already my gaze is upon the hill, the sunny one, at the end of the path which I've only just begun. So we are grasped by that which we could not grasp, at such great distance, so fully manifest. And it changes us, even when we do not reach it, into something that hardly sensing it, we already are. A sign appears, echoing our own sign, but what we sense is the wind against us. So I'd like to continue now with welcoming the Sabbath bride with the singing of Lecha Dodi. It's on page 20. And we know that what used to happen with this song would be that the mystics would go and they would walk out into the fields at sundown on Friday night, and they would wait for the Sabbath bride, the spirit of the Sabbath bride or the Sabbath beloved, to enter their midst. And so the idea is that they took a beautiful walk out at sunset, and you can imagine that that really put them into a mood of being able to receive the spirit of Shabbat coming into their midst. So when we sing Lecha Dodi, we will a little bit reenact that. So at the end of the verse, if you are able, either physically or in spirit, to rise and face the entrance, when we say Boi v'shalom, ateret ba'ala, enter in peace to the Sabbath bride, and we will bow to her. So we turn to page 20.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nerkabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nerkabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad hishmiyanu elchem yuchad Adonai echad u'shmo echad l'shem u'tiferet v'litila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nerkabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nerkabela. Likrat Shabbat lechuvel nechakim kor habarach merosh mikedem nesucha sof maaseh b'machshavati la. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nerkabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nerkabela. Hitoreni kiva orech kumi uri shir daberi kevod Adonai ayich nigla. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nerkabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nerkabela. Boi v'shalom ateret ba'ala gam b'simcha u'tzol ha'toch emunei am segula. דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. יאי די 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 יאי די 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 da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 da.
And now we can officially say Shabbat Shalom. According
Shabbat
to
Shalom.
the mystics, it is now really Shabbat. You can go ahead and have a seat and go ahead and turn to your neighbor, wish them a Shabbat Shalom.
Apologies.
Find out how their week was. See if they have anything fun to share from their week, perhaps. Anything fun? Okay, and let's go ahead and turn to page 22. We'll continue with our Kabbalat Shabbat, welcoming the Sabbath through various psalms with Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat.
22.
22.
Page 22. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, לזמר לשמך עליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך, באמונתך בלילות. עלה עשור ועלה נבל, עלה היגיון בכינור. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון.
Okay, so I want to share a little bit from our Torah portion tonight. I prepared it a little bit more as a study than a true talk.
Thank you.
So you can go ahead and check out some sources that we have. If you can hand them back behind you. There you go. Hello, Shabbat Shalom. Good to see you. Okay. There you go. So in this Torah portion, Akev, we have 3 mentions of walking with God. So 3 times it says, you should walk in God's ways and revere God. Walk in God's paths. Walk in all of God's ways. So you can see that it's kind of a theme, because in the Torah portion, when a word is repeated over and over again, the biblical writers use so few words. They really used not so many adjectives, really. And so when they repeated words, that really meant that it was significant to them. And the word in Hebrew for walk, the Hebrew is made up of words that have roots at their base. So the root for walking is the 3 letters Hey, Lamed, Chaf. And you probably remember this a little bit from Hebrew school if you grew up, but the word going to Hebrew school. So Hey, Lamed, Chaf. And those letters also give rise to the word halacha, which means Jewish law. But we know that our sages also interpreted this more broadly. Halacha wasn't just about what mitzvot you do and how much you follow Jewish law, but it was also kind of a larger concept of how you walk on God's path. What does that mean to be on a journey where you're walking in God's ways? And so they saw it as a little bit broader. Like you know that we say about the Torah, all its paths are peace. We're going to sing it a little bit later, Derachecha darchei noam, that the Torah's paths are peaceful paths. So there is this sort of broader spiritual sense of walking, being on the Torah's path, following Jewish laws and mitzvot, but also just being on like a spiritual path in God's ways. So if you turn the page over, I just want to share with you two different people from the Torah that you already know about that also had a walking relationship with God, shall we say. So the first is Noah, as you remember Noah from the ark. And when we first are introduced to Noah, we learn that Noah was a righteous man. He was blameless in his age, within his generation, and Noah walked with God. He walked with God. But then you notice that when we fast forward a little bit to Abraham, whose name here is still Abram, it's before his name change. When we meet Abraham, God says to Abraham, when Abram was 99 years old, the Eternal One appeared to Abram and said to him, I am El Shaddai, that's one of God's names, walk before me and be blameless. So of course our commentators wanted to know, what is the difference between walking with God and the idea that Abraham would be walking before God? What is the difference there? Because our commentators were obsessed with trying to know, why did the Torah pick different words at different times? They must have meant to say something different. So here, Rashi, who is a medieval commentator who is in France, and he was also a beer maker, for those of you who are interested. He did lots of interesting things with his time besides just doing all kinds of Torah commentary. But he explains that he's talking about this notion that Noah walked with God, and he says, in the case of Abraham, Scripture says, God before whom I walked, right? That's kind of similar to what we were saying before about how Abraham walked before God. And here's what Rashi says, that Noah needed God's support to uphold him in righteousness. But Abraham drew his moral strength from himself and walked in his righteousness by his own effort. So here we have two different situations, two different people. Noah, who's famous for being righteous, but kind of only compared to the people in his generation, he walked with God. He needed God's support to uphold him and make sure that he did the right thing. But Abraham, he had his own moral strength, and he was actually able to walk in front of God and help God to do the right thing. And you might know the famous story of Sodom and Gomorrah, in which God says, you know what, I think these cities of Sodom and Gomorrah are very evil, I'm going to destroy them. But I wonder what Abraham will think. And Abraham says, wait a minute, if there are 50 good people, you shouldn't destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And they kind of go back and forth, and Abraham talks God out of his plan to destroy, well, he doesn't talk him out of it, but he sort of like makes sure that the city is very, very evil, not even fewer than 10 evil people before God is allowed to destroy the cities by Abraham. So Abraham destroyed the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. So Abraham very much leads God and helps God with his own sense of his own sense of morality and his own strength.
Is that where the 10 per million comes from?
Oh, that's a good question.
10 righteous
10 righteous
people?
people, that may be. That could be. I am not sure. Yeah. So what I wanted to say in conclusion was that these two characters, Noah and Abraham, they were both able to walk and have a connection with God. But our tradition really says it's not just about walking with God, it's also about having our own moral strength and our own ability to lead. So I think about that as we move into this Shabbat, especially as we turn towards the high holidays, of really trying to look inward and say, where's our moral strength and where's our ability to lead, even when those around us might not be. So I wish for all of us that we can tap into that moral strength of Abraham, and that we can continue to walk in God's ways, in all kinds of ways, in Jewish ways, in spiritual ways, and really create those pathways of peace in our lives, and be able to touch those around us as well. So Shabbat Shalom. Okay, we continue now with Chatzi Kaddish, the Reader's Kaddish, on page 26. Please rise.
Let me just get the page. Great. Yet gadal v'yet kadash shemei rabbah.
Amen.
V'yam hadivrach yirtei v'yam lech malchutei. V'chayechon uv'yom echon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. Bagala, bagala, uvizman kariv, v'meru.
Amen.
Yehei shemei rabba mevarach, le'alam u'almei almaya. Yitbarach, Yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitroman, v'yitnasei, v'yithadar, v'yithalev, v'yithalal, shemei dekudesha, brechu, le'lam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran bilma, v'meru. Amen.
We continue now with Baruchu, the call to worship, on page 28. Turn to page 30 and continue with Ma'ariv Arabim, thinking of God in the transitions of life between day and night, night and day, seasons. And we'll sing roll into dark, roll into light, night becomes day, day turns to light.
Roll into dark, roll into light, night חושך מפני אור. הרי יום ולילה גולל אור מפני חושך. גולל אור מפני חושך. וחושך מפני אור.
Baruch atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim.
Amen.
Page 34. You can take a deep breath and close your eyes or cover your eyes as we begin to listen. The words of the Shema say, listen, hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. So we close our eyes, I think, so that we can really try to listen to those around us, to the sound of our breath, to the wisdom that is inside of us and all around us.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, with all thy soul, and with all of thy might. And all these words which I command you on this day shall be in thine heart, shall be in thy heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto your children, and thou shalt speak of them while thou sittest in thine house, when thou walkest by the way, and when you rise up, and when you lie down, and when you risest up, and thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thy hand, and they shall be for frontlets between thine eyes, and thou shalt write them on the doorposts of thy house, and upon thy gates, and upon thy gates, that you may remember and to your God.
We continue on page 40 with our people's song for freedom, Micha Mocha. Let's hear everyone sing. Yalalai. Here we go. Yai lai lai, yai da 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 da, yai lai lai, lai la 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 la, yai da 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 da, yai da 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 da. One more time. Here we go. Yai da da, yai da 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 da, yai da 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 da, da 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 da, yai da 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 da. Micha mocha, micha mocha ba'elim Adonai, micha mocha neder b'kodesh, norah tehi lodo seifele, norah tehi lodo seifele. Malachutecha ra'u banecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe. Ze'elianu ve'amru, Ze'elianu ve'amru, Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed. Yai lai lai, yai da 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 da, yai lai lai da 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 da, yai da 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 da, yai da 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 da, yai da 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 da, yai da da. Page 44, we continue with Yismechu, feeling the joy or the simcha, the Yismechu of Shabbat.
Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'toreh, oneg Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'toreh, oneg Shabbat. Mekadeshei, Mekadeshei Shavi Shabbat, Kulam Yisbehu, V'tanu V'tu V'cha Shabbat, Yismechu V'malechutecha, Shomrei, 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 Shabbat V'koreh, Oneg Shabbat, Yismechu V'malechutecha, Shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'koreh, oneg Shabbat. V'ashvi ratzita bo v'kayim shel Shabbat, chemdad yamim oto karata Shabbat, Yismechu v'malechutecha, Shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'koreh, oneg Shabbat, Yismechu v'malechutecha, Shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'koreh, oneg Shabbat. Heker l'masei v'reishit Shabbat, Zecher l'masei v'reishit Shabbat, Yismechu v'malechutecha, Shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'koreh, oneg Shabbat, Yismechu v'malechutecha, Shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'koreh, oneg Shabbat.
So we're about to go into the Amidah, the standing prayer, and before we do, I'd love to share in what are people feeling grateful for? What are your words of gratitude this week?
The bar is over today.
Yay, the bar is over! How did he feel about it?
Well, he was throwing up.
Oh, it's a lot. Yeah.
That was a day for 4 days, a bit much.
Wow,
But I'm glad it's over.
that is great. Anybody else want to share words of gratitude? Joanna, yeah. For health. Good health. Thank you. Very important. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Lori.
I'm grateful that Liv drove me to temple tonight.
And we didn't crash.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
It's a win.
Yes, that's awesome. Jay, yeah.
Okay, my granddaughter, thank God, came up with this lousy disease. My grandson is out, still watching with the basketball, is having to keep up with it.
Okay.
And my cousin, which I hate to say, is moving away, so we go to Colorado, Children's Hospital 5 Towns, he's going to his son and grandson, and I'm losing like a son. We're very, very, very close, and help me with my bills and everything, whatever it is. And then, what else? My other grandson is doing well in real estate. My daughter's 3 kids, thank God, not good, it's good.
Good.
My cats are so far surviving, but one of them stays with me, unbelievable. And what else can I tell you? I got the,
Thank God.
really, everything,
Thank you.
except for my cousin not being away from me, like I used to.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing. Okay, let's all rise for the Amidah. We're going to start on page 46 with Adonai Sefatai Tiftach. And I don't know if you've seen me do this before, if other people have this custom, but there's a part where we walk backwards and walk forwards as we're starting the prayer. And so it goes kind of like this. So we go, it's one step for every word. If you want to try it, it's Adonai, Sefatai, Tiftach, Ufi, Yagid, and then you put your feet together, Tehilatecha. So it is kind of a walking meditation in and of itself. And the idea was that when we're approaching God, we're modest. We walk backwards to show our modesty and our humility, and then we walk forwards to say we're ready to share what's in our heart. So if you want to try that, it's a little bit of a walking meditation as we begin the Amidah. And then what we're going to do, we've been trying this the last few weeks, we're going to pray silently through to page 62. 62. And that's a lot of pages. You can either use the words on the page to pray, or you can use the words in your own heart. Whatever works for you, whatever you are needing in this moment. So we'll begin on page 46. Adonai Sefatai Tiftach Ufi Agib Techilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Yadadai-dai-dai, 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 yadadai-dai-dai.
Say shalom, bimromav, huya say shalom, aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru amen. Say shalom bimromav, huya say shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru amen. Say shalom bimromav, huya say shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru amen. Say shalom bimromav, huya say shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru
We are ready now for Seder Kriyat HaTorah, the service for the reading of the Torah. So, I would like to know, Sherry, as our president, would you like to come and open the ark? Okay, wonderful. We turn everybody to page 246. Please rise.
Should I come as well?
Yes, that would be great.
Okay.
Ki
Mitzion Teitzei Torah, Ki Mitzion Teitzei Torah, Udvar Adonai Merushalayim.
Thank you. And this scroll is the secret of our people's life from Sinai until now. Its teaching is love and justice, goodness and hope. Freedom is its gift to all who treasure it.
Shlosha Devarim, Al Shlosha Devarim, Al Shlosha Devarim, Halam Omid, Al Shlosha Devarim, Al Shlosha Devarim, Al Shlosha Devarim, Halam Omid, Al HaTorah ve'al Avodah ve'al Gemilu Chasadim, Al HaTorah ve'al Avodah ve'al Gemilu Chasadim, Al Shlosha Devarim, Al Shlosha Devarim, Al Shlosha Devarim, Halam Omid, Al HaTorah ve'al Avodah ve'al Gemilu Chasadim, Al HaTorah ve'al Avodah ואל גמילות חסדים. על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים העולם עומד. על התורה והעבודה ועל גמילות חסדים. על התורה והעבודה ועל גמילות חסדים.
May be seated. Okay. So we are reading today from Deuteronomy chapter 8, verses 6 through 10, and it is in the Chumash, the larger Torah book, on page 1230, if you would like to follow along, 1230. And again, it is Deuteronomy chapter 8, verses 6 through 10. And I wanted to pick this part of the Torah because it has one of the mentions that we were talking about before of walking in God's paths. But then, right after that, we have a really beautiful part that talks about why we should walk in God's paths. And here we get a really big theme in Deuteronomy, which has to do with the connection to the land, to the Eretz. And talking about Eretz Yisrael, and it's not called Eretz Yisrael in here, but it's called Haaretz, like the land. And you're going to hear that word over and over again, Eretz, Eretz, Eretz. And what it's talking about is all of the good things that we will find once we get there. You know, once we get there. Again, it's that whole looking towards the promised land and what are we going to have when we get there. So we get the honey, and we get the dates, and the springs of water, and this image of being able to find food without any difficulty or danger. And then the last verse that I'm going to read says, when you have eaten your fill, give thanks to the eternal God for the good land that was given to you. And from this verse is where we get the commandment to say the blessing after the meal. The idea being that when we eat, we are very connected to the earth because our food comes from the earth in one way or another. Even though these days it's very hard often to tell this, ultimately our food does come from the earth even today. And back in the times of the Torah, people certainly were very, very aware of their connection to the earth. And wanted to give thanks for that to God. So that's what we are reading from today. So I want to invite anybody up who wants to come up and be near the Torah and do the blessing. So maybe you're feeling especially grateful for something that you want to give thanks to. Maybe you're appreciating your food or something awesome that happened in your week this week. So come on up if you want to help me in doing the blessing for the Torah. And it's really fun because you get to see what's in the Torah and be close to our scroll. And the blessing, everybody, is on page 250. And let me just find our spot for us. A spot that was like very in the middle of this paragraph, I think right here. Yeah, that would be great, but first I just have to find this spot. Something that was like in the middle of one of these big paragraphs. This is one minute here. Okay, here we go. I didn't highlight it. I didn't put it a post-it note or anything. It's right here. Okay, so as I've been showing over the past couple weeks, there's a tradition that the Torah reader points at where we're starting from, and then if you have a talit, you can go ahead and touch the tzitzit to that spot right there and kiss it. So Liv is going to show us how we do that. Awesome. And go ahead and take it away, blessers. 1, 2, 3.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam ba'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. V'shamarta et mitzvot Adonai Elohecha lalechet bidrachav ulira'oto. Ki Adonai Elohecha mevi'acha el eretz tova, eretz nachalei mayim, ayonot utehomot, yotzim babik'a uvahar, eretz chita us'ora, vegefen ute'ena verimon, eretz zayit shemen udavash, eretz asher lo v'miskunot tochal ba'lechem lo techsar kol ba, eretz asher avneha varzel umeharareha tachtzov nechoshet ve'achalta ve'savata uverachta et ha'eretz Elohecha. Okay.
Talit first or blessing first?
Talit first. You go ahead and. There we go. Good. Go ahead. 1, 2, 3.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Okay, thank you. Go ahead down. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Misha Berach.
Beautiful. We are going to continue now with Misha Berach, our time when we pray for those who are in need of healing, of body, of mind, or of spirit. And we are going to go ahead and if you have your pamphlet that you might have received when you came in, it has our Misha Berach names in it. And you can go ahead and look at those names and pray for those on our Misha Berach list. And if you'd like to add the names of someone else for whom you're praying, please do so as my eyes meet yours.
Rocco Pisani, Ellen Epstein, Jill Hunsiger, Rose Eisenstadt.
Moses Powell and Ruth Simon.
We continue with Misha Berach on page 253.
Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Le'imotenu of strength, who bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We say, Baruch atah Adonai rofei hacholim. Blessed are you, God, who heals the sick.
Amen.
We rise now as we return the Torah to the Ark. Please rise, page 252. Vezota Torah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael. Api Adonai b'yad Moshe. Yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai Page 282, we continue with Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, latet girula leotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoye haratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני
יש כוכבים שאורם מגיע ארצה, רק כאשר הם עצמם עבדו ואינם. There are stars up above, so far away we only see their light, long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. We draw into our hearts now those who have passed from this earth most recently, Lewis Allen, beloved husband of Jerry Allen, and Anne Williams, cherished friend of Arlene Hanlon. We also call to mind with love those whose yahrzeits we recall this week. Charles L. Bondi, Benjamin Bayer, Jean Finkelstein, Caroline Fish, Barbara Sylvain Glass, Lorraine Gold, Joseph Goldstein, Herman Greenberg, Rhoda Hammer, Ethel Levinson, Rose Price, Sally Scheider, Rebecca Silverschatz, Edward Spirer, Rick Stone, Jerome Strauss, Evelyn Weber, Lawrence Seth Wiener, and Sylvia Yellen. Would anybody like to add the name of a loved one whom they are remembering this week? We rise now as we continue with Mourner's Kaddish on page 294.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, bi'alma divrach irte v'yamlich malchute, v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mivarach le'elam u'almei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, V'yatadar, v'yataleh, v'yatalal, shemei dekudasha brichu. Le'la min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma, v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayin olenu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav. Uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen.
May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and all Israel, and comfort to all of the bereaved among us. And we say together, Amen. You may be seated. Are there any announcements? I know I need my paper. I haven't done it yet. I have a couple announcements that I can share. So tomorrow is Torah study at 9 o'clock on Zoom. We're going to continue on our theme of walking and looking a little more at the Parsha tomorrow. Next Sunday, the 8th, is Jewish Heritage Night at the Brooklyn Cyclones. So we would love to have you join us. We're gonna go, and it's $16 a ticket. Once you give your money to the temple office, then the tickets will be at will call at the stadium. So that's how that's going to work, and then we'll all get to sit together for the baseball game. And then also we're going to have Beach Shabbat at 5:30 every Friday in August. So next Friday at 5:30 at the beach entrance of 147th Street, we'll do a short and sweet Shabbat on the beach, and then we'll also have our sanctuary service here at 7:30. So either way or both. Maybe it's like a double header, I don't know, to continue with our baseball theme. And then looking ahead to the end of the month, we already have Slichot on August 28th, Saturday. So Slichot is a really beautiful way of getting into the holiday. Slichot means prayers of forgiveness. But it's also a kind of a sweet and joyous time to be together. This year we're going to have a barbecue, which is pretty cool. And we're also going to have a sing-along. Our new student cantor, Gabriel, is going to be here for that, and we're planning some fun American and Jewish songs to help us get in that mood of reflecting and feeling grateful for the year. And then we'll also get to change our Torah covers over to the white for the holidays. So it's coming. I know, it's coming. So if there are any children who would like to come and join for the closing song, we're going to end with Adon Olam. And it is on page 321. Come on, children. You want to come sit on my lap? Okay. So nice. Okay, Adon Olam, page 321. Come on, Mama.
Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yetzer Nivra Leit Naser Shkov Sholocho Asem Malech Shemo Nikra Asem Malech Shemo Nikra Yocha Kol Levado Imlot Nora Behu echad ve'ein sheni L'ham shelo l'chabira Beli reshit beli tachlit Velo ha'oz ve'hamisra Velo ha'oz ve'hamisra Ve'elu eli v'chad go'ali V'tzor kevli be'et zara Ve'hu nisi umanosli Menat kosi beyom mecha Beyad kosi beyom mechra Beyad alo akid ruchi Be'ed ishan va'ira Be'im ruchi geviyati Adonai velo ira Adonai li velo ira.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you to Liv for leading us in music, and thank you to Thomas and Liz for helping with our tech. And I would love to invite everyone to go outside for Shalom Alechem and Kiddush.